Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Patriots History. I'm co-author of Patriots History of the United States with Michael Allen, Larry Swikart, and we are now in our 20th anniversary edition, which is, by the way, just a PDF. If you want it, email me at larry@wildworldofhistory.com, and I will send you the PDF. It's a new chapter of the years 2018 to 2023. It's school time. I know many of you already got your curricula, but if you don't have your history curricula yet, remember I have a high school curriculum that covers all of U.S. history, Columbus to Trump, 22 units that track perfectly with Patriots History of the United States, prompt by prompt, and I teach every unit in high production video. Remember also, it comes with no license to expire. It's yours as long as you want, with as many kids as you want. So consider that. It's political season. Remember, I will be doing a live election night webcast on Decision USA 2024. So you can find us at decisionusaonline.com. That's decisionusaonline.com. See how you can help. Maybe you want to contribute $5 or something. It costs a lot of money to do this production. So check in. It's going to be great. Believe me, you won't want to watch Fox or CNN while we're on. I'll be with Seth Keschel and Ash Epp. It's going to be great. All right. Oh, also, if you're into politics, because it's that time, make sure you check out my Wild World of Politics Insider. For $6 a month, you can get my political commentary 3 days a week, as well as ongoing lesson programs you cannot find at the Wild World of History or in our VIP there. These include globalism, then and now, and Churchill, integrity, Reagan, the American president. I know the new Reagan movie is coming out this weekend, so you might want to check out my series on Reagan. At any rate, look at both the Insider over there for political insider stuff, and go to the VIP at the Wild World of History for history insider stuff, including dozens of free blogs. Well, let's get started. We are in what chapter is this? 11? Yes, 11. And it's called Lighting Out for the Territories. It's our history of the American West. And I am on page 412 of Patriots History of the United States 15th Anniversary Edition. Now, let me check something. Okay, the reason I paused was I wanted to make sure that we didn't have any new additions or insertions, which will come with that 20th anniversary update that I sent. And no, we do not for this particular time. All right. Again, 412 in the 15th Anniversary Edition of Patriots History of the United States. And I'm beginning with the Iron Horse races west. American railroads had already started to undercut prices in river traffic by the Civil War. Railroads stretched into Missouri and Wisconsin, and construction continued westward after the war. Most students of history are familiar with the subsidized transcontinental railroads that received millions of acres of federal land to support their construction. The other side of the story, however, is that hundreds of local train lines and 2 transcontinentals, the Great Northern and the Milwaukee Railroad, were funded and built purely with private capital. So when the Union Pacific and Northern Pacific Railroads lobbied Congress after the Civil War, contending that only government could help them complete their transcontinentals, they were wrong. James J. Hill soon built more efficient, competing line without government aid, and so too did the owners of the Milwaukee Railroad. Private roads not only survived panics when subsidized roads failed, but the owners of unsubsidized lines also spent their own funds to relocate farmers, future customers, along with their routes, to invest in agricultural research and livestock breeding, and to ensure that the lines, once completed, would remain healthy. And it's worth noting the private companies on their own arrived at a national railroad track with standard without any involvement of government, universally agreeing to the 5-foot, 8.5-inch standard by 1886. They need a law to do that. In 1883, railroaders held a convention in Chicago where they adopted a system of standard time zones for schedules that are still in use today. The government did not make the time zones official for another 35 years. So the railroads did a lot of stuff on their own without government. Transcontinentals provided countless benefits, including the isolation of many Westerners and ending the isolation of many Westerners and providing them with, quote, metropolitan corridors. Life was better with easier travel for visiting friends and relatives and leisure destinations, as well as for conducting business. In thousands of Western towns, the railroad station became the hub of community life, where locals eagerly awaited the daily arrival of freight and passengers, and the railroad's telegraph office became a vital link to the outside. Before radio, Westerners gathered around railroad telegraphers to learn presidential election results, international news, and even the scores of football and World Series games. Railroads also contributed to the rise of America's national parks, as America's first generation of ecotourists booked passage aboard special spur lines created by the Great Northern Railroad, the Northern Pacific, and Southern Pacific Railroads to tour Glacier, Yellowstone, and Grand Canyon national parks. Railroad entrepreneurs such as Henry Villard, in fact, plotted the routes of their lines to showcase the West's majesty. And when buffalo became a major attraction at Yellowstone Park, park officials attempted to ensure that passengers could see the buffalo herds from the train. The natural resources frontier. Trends seen in the evolution of natural resource extraction industries, fur, fish, ore, timber, ranching, and agriculture actually parallel several of the patterns of the stagecoach, steamboat, and transcontinental railroad industries. Entrepreneurs tended to start out small, but larger concerns soon came to dominate, largely because technology and capital was necessary to efficiently harvest natural resources. An important result of this efficiency, however, was a tendency to over-harvest in the short term, a failure to conserve natural resources, which quickly produce higher prices in efforts to moderate extraction in the long term. Although historians have been quick to blame this environmental waste and destruction on the forces of free market capitalism, once again, the picture was not so clear. In opposition to laissez-faire principles, the federal government often played a major role in leasing or giving federal land to miners, loggers, farmers, ranchers, and fishermen, distorting incentives by making resources cheap that, had the market had its way, would have been at a much higher cost. Then, as today, state and federal governments, not market forces, regulated many natural resource extraction industries, and often did so poorly, actually undercutting market forces that would have adjusted prices and therefore supply. Contrary to the capitalist menace view of the environment and extraction-related industries, it was the existence of so much public land, the absence of private property, that was the main detriment to responsible stewardship of Western natural resources. As we have seen, fur trappers were the first to overharvest public lands. The American Fur Company, which flourished under the often heavy-handed direction of John Jacob Astor, began diversifying into emerging industries. Before the British retreated to the 49th parallel in 1846, the Hudson's Bay Company was harvesting, drying, and pickling Western salmon for export to Europe. Following the Civil War, American entrepreneurs cashed in on the revolutionary changes brought by the invention of the canning process. Canned fish, especially salmon, reaped spectacular profits for large concerns like Hapgood, Hume and Company, which employed thousands of Scandinavian immigrant fishermen and Chinese cannery workers. Like the fur trappers, fishermen overharvested the public waterways, and as early as 1877, trap and net fishing had interrupted the stifled salmon spawning. At the mouth of some western rivers, the armada of fishing boats was so thick during the salmon spawning season, fishermen could walk from deck to deck over the hundreds of fishing boats. Industry technology was so efficient that it threatened its own long-term survival by killing so many salmon. In the case of fur and fish, the early American legal system had not yet developed appropriate ways to privatize property rights so that those responsible for using the resources would bear the full cost. Often industrial polluters would dump waste in streams and rivers without owning any more than a small section of waterfront land. Other industrialists, however, displayed much better stewardship. Frederick Weyerhauser and Gustavus Swift, for example, voluntarily monitored replacement of resources and pollution as common sense responses to wise land management. Weyerhauser, for example, would plant 5 times as many trees as he cut down. Swift would go down to the rivers and lakes, to wherever the meat plants had effluent that ran off, and he would test the water daily. And if he tasted too much fat in the water, he would immediately go back, shut down the plant, and demand better efficiency, because fat in the water meant that they weren't using all parts of the pig. As he used to joke, we use all parts of the pig but the squeal. It was simply good business to ensure a constant supply of one's raw materials, whether they were trees or cattle. The rush to mine the West's rich veins of gold, silver, and copper ore also brought technology, capitalization, and environmental waste. While the Civil War raged back east, miners fanned out to seek gold in present-day states of California, Nevada, site of the famed Comstock lode, Washington, Idaho, and Montana. Afterward, they tried their luck in Colorado, in the Black Hills of the Dakotas, and near the turn of the century in the newly acquired Alaska. Canadian gold rushes in the Fraser River Valley of British Columbia and the Yukon Territory saw similar patterns of and usually drew the same multinational workforce. In the early stages, mining rushes were peopled by individualistic entrepreneurs, the fabled sourdoughs, equipped with only a pick and a shovel, a gold pan, and a few months' grub stake, and a mule to carry it all to El Dorado. Very few struck it rich, and most prospectors soon gave up and moved on to better pickings. Some took advantage of collaborative efforts to strike it rich. Groups of miners replaced single panning with rockers, sluice boxes, and long toms, with which they channeled fast-moving river water to strain dirt and more efficiently search for gold. The crude sluices, however, soon gave way to hydraulic mining, the use of powerful pumps and water hoses to wash down and cull entire hillsides in search of ore. Hydraulics of this magnitude required capital and expertise, which brought large companies and professional management and mining engineers. This evolution was completed with lode mining, the use of dynamite and rock crushers to separate veins of gold, silver, and copper ore from hard rock buried deep within the mountainsides. By the time lode mining had begun, the sourdoughs and their sluices had long departed, and many of those who had come west to strike it rich found themselves working for a paycheck in company towns like Butte, Montana, or Globe, Arizona. While gold fever was claiming one sort of Western immigrant, the thick forests, rich with spruce, cedar, pine, and Douglas fir trees, were beckoning another type, the logger. Although the Hudson's Bay Company had built major logging and sawmilling operation in and around Fort Vancouver in 1827, smaller entrepreneurs also soon flocked to the west, drawn by the sheer abundance of natural resources. Western loggers followed water routes, floating timber down the navigable rivers, leading to sawmills like those at the mouth of the Columbia and Sacramento rivers and on Puget Sound, Port Blakely, and Port Ludlow. Grays Harbor, Washington, and Coos Bay, Oregon. The railroad's need for hundreds of thousands of railroad ties provided an important early market for lumber. This small-scale decentralized logging business was revolutionized in the 1880s with the introduction of narrow-gauge railroad, which made it possible to cut forests far away from navigable rivers. Innovations such as cross-cut saws, donkey engines, steam loaders, and steam-powered bandsaws, which could increase mill output tenfold, dramatically changed and improved the ways loggers felled, loaded, and processed lumber. These were all capital-intense technologies, which meant that small entrepreneurs soon gave way to larger and better financed firms like the St. Paul and Tacoma Lumber Company and the Weyerhauser Company, which themselves had started small. Weyerhauser himself went broke in 1857, but soon tried again. His genius lay in his ability to see the final product and to understand the business concept of vertical integration, whereby the company owned all of the various parts of the production process, from raw material to transportation to sales. By 1885, his beef sew company processed some 500 million board feet of lumber. At that point, he still tended to use forests as if they were infinite. But in 1900, having purchased nearly 1 million acres from the Great Northern Railroad, Weyerhauser's inspectors found that the lands were not nearly as rich in timber as he had thought. That discovery forced him, as market forces do, to focus on reforestation, preventing soil erosion, and fire prevention. Then, as today, more forest lands are destroyed by fires, mostly caused by lightning, than are lost to harvesting. The historian of fire in America, Stephen Pine, I know an appropriate name, found that from 1940 to 1965, when fire prevention techniques were far from advanced, then in Weyerhauser's time, lightning started some 228,000 fires in the United States, burning up to 1 million acres in a single forest. Weyerhauser and soon all other paper giants like International Paper and Kimberly-Clark began massive reforestation programs in which the companies planted on average about 5 times more than they consumed. Kimberly-Clark in 1902 became the first producer of paper products to embark on a long-term woodlands management program employing hundreds of professional foresters before the U.S. government entered the area of forest conservation. Wherever possible, of course, companies sought to use federal funds and federal lands while leasing and harvesting as many state and federal tracts as could be acquired. Interestingly, the Weyerhauser Company's ultimate dominance of Northwestern logging, the company owned 26% and 20% respectively of all Washington, Oregon timber stands, was an indirect result of federal largesse. Frederick Weyerhauser bought his Northwest Empire at $6 per acre from his St. Paul, Minnesota neighbor, James J. Hill. Hill had obtained it when he bought the extensive federal grants of Henry Villard's bankrupt Northern Pacific Railroad. Weyerhauser proceeded to build the world's largest sawmill in Everett, Washington in 1914. I think that's a good place to stop. Next time we will pick up with the cattle frontier. So remember, you can still get Patriot's History of the United States and Patriot's History of Globalism online, autographs sent to you cheap. And remember, if you don't have a curriculum, grab the US or the World History curriculum, where I teach all units in video soon. And I will see you back here in a few days.